Previously on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
Last year, I had quit working for an OnlyFans agency. OnlyFans is the new era of porn. So people do think that it's just this kind of website where you can sell anything on there. That's a very regular argument I hear. Well, you can put anything on there. Technically, yes, you can. 98% of the content on OnlyFans is porn. I had this just absolutely transformative experience with Jesus.
Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. Is your faith stuck on Sunday? Christianity was never meant to be constrained to a weekly church service. I'm Krista, and here you'll find discussions on the Bible, mum life, and of course, how to live your faith outside of Sunday.
I get a Bible, and in April is when I start working at the OnlyFans agency. So I didn't read it. I didn't do anything with it, but it was there.
Wow.
And then this is where it's like the Lord, you see the drip feeds of the Lord in your life. There's so many other things I can talk about. Like, I don't know if you can see like the scar on my forehead, and that's Jesus. I had a murder attempt on me, and like Jesus literally saved me from that. Yep. That's a story in itself. But then I've fallen asleep while driving, and I've had supernatural things happen. And like, you can just see the Lord in your life when you look back and you realize that even in those moments, Jesus still saves. Jesus still loves you. He still seeks you. Like, just that's the only word I can use. He hunts you down, but it's not it's because he loves you and he's just desperate for you in the most beautiful way. And so, in my selfishness, I was not looking for the Lord. I wasn't trying to find salvation or answers or anything like that. I wanted to offset all the bad I was doing. And so I'm working at this OnlyFans agency, and instead of doing all the marketing, we kind of changed the structure around a little bit. And so that's when I started to see the back end of OnlyFans, and I started to do account management. And so I'm seeing.
So at this point, you hadn't really seen what was happening on OnlyFans, is that right?
No. So the way that the agency was run was I was again doing all the social media. Someone else was doing all of the OnlyFans. And so basically what we had seen is that if someone's running their OnlyFans, I'm running their social media, the subscriber is talking to you on OnlyFans and then on social media, there's a disconnect between us. So people are starting to pick up on the fact that maybe it's not the girl they're talking to. And so we realized, okay, we need to split the girls in half, and you now do the full life cycle. So you do the marketing and the OnlyFans, but for less girls. And so that's when I actually had then started to jump on the back end, and I started to see all the porn, and I started to see everything and really understand what this is. And so that's when I can't open up my laptop anymore. I'm like crying every day. I'm so distressed, and I'm just feeling yuck. And I just knew that this was wrong. And so, as I said, I'd asked around the agency, what do you think about this? And people like, again, they weren't super fussed, and all of that. And so I was like, okay, I have a genius idea. I'm going to offset all the bad that I'm doing and do something good. And I had this idea, I'm going to go help refugees. I was like, I'm going to go to Greece and I'm going to help refugees. And I remember that this church that I'd gone to as a kid, again, the Lord, because how would I remember this? This church I went to as a kid had a refugee program. And that's it. I get so excited about this.
I love it.
But that's all he needed. Was literally, I remember I was on the phone to my brother, and I said, I want to go away and I want to just like help refugees or something and do something. And he goes, why don't you just chill and just try do something like locally and then see if you want to do that? And Jesus is like, no, that's all I needed was that tiny conversation for him to swing the door open and totally change my life. And I remembered that there was this refugee program at this church. So I signed up to do this refugee program. And this is where it gets really cool. So as we know in bigger churches, there's different departments. It's not like one email goes to the same place for everything. So I signed up to help refugees. Now, I find out months later that an email went to the young adults pastor, and it said, Victoria wants to reach out to the church. Here's her number, call her, and it had my phone number.
Wow.
I was like, what? Anyways, so I get a call from this random girl. And she goes, hey, do you want to come down to church? Like, why do you want to reach out? Blah, blah, blah. And I had alluded a little bit to what was going on and stuff like that. But like my mentality was like, we're going to talk about refugees type of thing.
Yeah.
So on a Thursday, I arrive at church, and I remember I'm sitting in my car and I'm sitting in the car park at the front of church. And I'm like, I can't walk in there. I can't go into that church. I was like, I'm such a bad person. I will literally burst into flames. And I genuinely was like, I can't do it. I can't walk in there. And so I was wrestling with myself at the front. And then I just went, screw it. You're here. Just go in. And so I walk into church and I just word vomit to this girl. And I just start telling her everything that's going on, the cannabis company, the OnlyFans, everything. I'm getting wrecked, like talking about it because I'm like, I just love Jesus.
Yeah.
And she's so sweet. She's so beautiful. She just goes, I really think you should come to church this week. And I think you'll really resonate with the speaker. And so on Sunday, I end up rocking up to church, and this lady in church is talking about this over-sexualized culture that we live in and the dangers of OnlyFans, and that Christians have failed. They're supposed to be the salt and the light of the earth. And look at this next generation. They're being destroyed and we have to do something about it now. And imagine I'm sitting there and I work at an OnlyFans agency and I'm hearing,
You're,
oh, I'm getting
what was that doing to you?
Oh my gosh, I'm just getting, but it's weird. It was doing so much in me. When I say that I'm getting wrecked, it's not like God was judging me and condemning. It's like everything was clicking, and it was almost like a relief of like, it is wrong. I knew that, oh my gosh, I know this is wrong. Finally, someone's told me what I knew I was feeling on the inside. And then I remember I just ran down to her after she finished speaking. And I said, hi, my name's Victoria. I work for an OnlyFans agency and I hate myself. And this woman was so beautiful. She didn't condemn me. She didn't judge me. She didn't go, you need to repent because you're going to burn in hell or but she just goes, let's have lunch. And she had lunch with me and she sat down with me. And for the next couple of hours, she answered all my questions. And I asked, isn't this a positive? Isn't this liberating? Isn't this a good thing? And she just explained to me why it wasn't. And that was on a Sunday. And by that Friday, as I said, that's when I walked away from everything. And then 8 weeks later, sober, baptized. And now, a year later, we're doing all the Jesus things.
Man, it's so amazing. I'm just like, man, like God is so good. And like, I just think when I hear all of like your story, Victoria, I'm just like, I'm amazed by the greatness of God. Like he has so much attention for each and every person. And like you say, how he was drawing you from it, when you said chasing you down, and it's like the story of the shepherd. He's not chasing you down to devour you. He's chasing you down to bring you into the flock. And he was wanting you. And I just love that. It's so exciting. And I love seeing how excited you are about it. And man, God is he's just so wonderful, so wonderful. So just for a minute, I'm going to play devil's advocate because you were hearing basically for the first time that OnlyFans is wrong. I would like us to go into that for a minute because I feel like almost what you were saying is you were feeling gaslit basically because everyone was saying, oh, no, it's not wrong. That's not wrong. It's totally fine. This is totally legitimate. And then here somebody finally like vindicated you and that like, oh, yes, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not the one who's crazy. Everyone else is crazy because they're saying like, it's totally fine and it's legit. So why is it that OnlyFans is not a net positive for the world at large?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many ways this question can be answered, but I think that what we have to understand, okay. I think I want to break this down into a couple different elements.
Break it down.
So the number one reason why this is not good for us is because porn is not good for us. We are not supposed to be watching other people have sex. It's weird, and this is not something that should be normalized in our culture. And the thing is why this isn't good is because there is a specific reason why God made sex as a covenant between man and woman. And a great analogy is that a fireplace is beautiful when it's in a fire. I mean, a fire is beautiful when it's in a fireplace. But if you put that fire out on the living room carpet, mate, you've got a problem there. And when we start allowing ourselves to fall for to satisfy every single desire that we have. It's like with gluttony. If you keep just eating and eating and every time you have a craving and all of this, that is so unhealthy and you're actually killing yourself. And so it is the exact same with sexual desires. If you just want to continue to satisfy yourself with every single sexual desire that you have, you are hurting yourself, and it hurts other people too. I know stories of gentlemen that I spoke with in America that literally he would watch so much porn that it got to the point that he was so desensitized to it that he went out and attempted to rape a girl because he needed to satisfy that
Whoa.
craving inside of him. And this was a gentleman who was a minister. And it's because, yeah. And it's because, again, we don't talk about these things in church. We don't have we don't open up the spaces to say, are you struggling with porn? How are you having sex before marriage? What's going on? And so because I'm side tangenting, but this is all going to wrap around. He
Yeah.
was so sexually abused as a child that he never had the capacity to talk about these things. And then he was exposed to porn and he thought porn would
Mhm.
have made it better. And then it's a
Mm.
whole entire story and it goes on and on. But it led to that. And that's what this happens, is that if we keep allowing this over sexualized culture, the consuming of porn, the allowing of things like OnlyFans to satisfy all these sexual desires, it literally will lead to depravity because it's not going to stay online anymore, but it will come into the world, and it is coming
Mm.
into the world. And so that's a massive point that we need to understand, that it actually isn't a positive to let them get it out. Oh, it's safe and it's healthy to watch and all these things. No, it destroys men's capacity to view women. Men that watch porn regularly see an image of tools and see an image of a naked woman, and it actually lights up the same parts of their brains. So they're literally commodifying women.
Oh.
They cannot see the difference between an object and a woman when people watch porn regularly. So what's that doing for relationships? What's that doing for marriages?
Mhm.
Violent porn is the most commonly watched porn, as well as fresh teen, and barely legal. So, what is that doing for our children and our women and our safety? And then, as well, for men, if what's that doing for their capacity to have healthy and satisfying relationships? Because it literally, as well, there's studies that show that men that continually watch porn, that that part in your brain that helps you to make decisions is actually shrunk, and it looks the same as drug addicts' brains.
Mm.
And so that's literally showing that this is damaging men on such a deep and intrinsic level that it's skewing their decision-making capacity, and their brains are showing the same brain functions as drug addicts because this is a drug. So that in itself is reason number one why OnlyFans is bad. Then number two is, what are we championing our people to aspire to? And I'm really passionate about this one, because what we are telling our young girls is that your only capacity, the only thing that you're good for, and the only thing that you can achieve in this life is to sell yourself online, is to be this sexual being, is to be
Yeah.
hot. And I put it like this: if we sat here and had a conversation and you were like, Vic, I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to talk. I just want you to sit there and look cute.
Mhm.
I'd be like that kind of hurts. So,
Mhm.
but that's what we're training our girls to believe and to think. And
Mhm.
so, what do we think is going to happen if we continue to tell our young girls that they need to be these sexualized things? It's like 9 to 14-year-olds are the biggest what's the word, like creators of child pornography, because they're sending out pictures and nudes of themselves to each other.
And
9-year-old.
from 9-year-old.
That's a study
Wow.
that I read as I'm developing these programs,
Mhm.
that it's literally starting with 9-year-olds. And I was with 120 14-year-olds literally yesterday. And the amount of those girls that have had their nudes leaked, that have been asked for naked pictures from boys and stuff like that. So this is
Mm.
what is happening, and they think that it's normal. And so imagine what these women are going to grow up and think and view themselves at, if even at 9 years old, they're sending sexually explicit content. At 14, it's getting leaked and everyone in their school is seeing their naked pictures.
Ah,
What is
yeah.
this doing to our girls? And again, what is this doing to our young boys? What is it telling them that a woman is in a relationship? And so we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here of, what are we telling people when we accept porn and over sexualization in any capacity? We're telling people that this is all they're good for. And working with these girls and seeing these girls that literally have told me that they think the only thing that they're good for is to do porn. You can see, I still remember like that sadness in one of the girls' eyes when she told me the only thing that she thinks she's good for is doing OnlyFans, but she hates doing it, but she doesn't have any other options. Like, that is such a lie.
Mm.
And so I just am like, we need to stop glorifying this. We need to stop glorifying over sexualization. and stop thinking as well that it's okay to be having sex in a relationship outside of the context of marriage, because what we're doing is we're actually creating a false sense of intimacy, because when you're having sex outside of those confines, you think that you know someone, you think that you're close to someone, but then when you strip that away, you realize, oh my gosh, I actually have to really have conversations with people. I have to be intentional. I actually can't just use my body or use my sexuality to throw that at them to get validation, to feel liked, and then to feel a sense of closeness. So we actually have to build a legitimate foundation. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, and especially our youth and young adults growing up. And again, guys listening to this, like Christians, the amount of Christians I've had conversations with, that they're having sex before marriage and they're sending nudes and they're doing all these things. So this isn't a worldly problem and not a church problem. And so there's a reason why God created it that way. And so I think that we need to understand that if we're promoting this over sexualized culture, or even burying our heads in the sand and being complacent about it, that's what we're leading our children to. And so again, they're thinking that, well, it's so normal to have sex. It's so normal to send nudes. It's so normal to do all these things because that's what my world and my culture tells me. So of course I'm going to do it and I'm not going to question it, even if I come from a home of Christians, unless you have parents that are just, really explain that to them well and help and guide them through that and the importance of that. And so I think that I guess that's two of the biggest reasons as to why I think OnlyFans is such a negative, and the implications that it has. But I feel like I could sit here forever and talk about it.
And it's funny, like you saying then, even like the whole thing of hotness. Hotness is different to beauty. Like hotness is there's a sexual component to hotness. And this might sound weird and maybe this is too much information, but like when my husband, like he'll sometimes say, oh babe, you look so hot right now. I'm like, I don't actually like that. And I've said this to him, I was like, don't call me hot. I don't want to be called hot. Like, even though you're my husband and you're the only one who should be calling me that, I would rather you call me beautiful. Like these girls are beautiful. They don't need to be looked at like they are these sexual objects. And you know how you were talking a moment ago about how, the degradation, what's the word? The deterioration, I think is the word of, like from porn to violent porn to then acting out. And it's the same thing for girls or people who are putting themselves on OnlyFans. Hey, you might start with some sexy pictures and then that's no longer enough. Then it's, all right, let's have some porn. And then, oh, that's not enough. Let's have some violent porn, or let's have this, let's have that. Is that something that you noticed in the OnlyFans world?
So I've now I saw that, yes, with some of the girls, but again, I wasn't around long enough to see the full life cycle of that eventuate. But I do know from now doing activism work how common of a narrative that is, and have met people that do say that of course you start out, you think that you're here, but then before you know it, you're doing this and this and this and this and this, and you get sucked into it. So you're 100% correct. And I've met multiple people now that were in the industry that say that exact story.
And I feel like there's, excuse me, I feel like with OnlyFans as well, part of the appeal is this illusion of control. And you alluded to that earlier, this idea that I'm in control of my content. I say when enough is enough, but it's almost, it is an illusion, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make money. And that almost becomes the controlling factor. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, OnlyFans is about as private as a public Instagram profile. So you
True.
think that you're going to have all your content behind a paywall. But literally, what's stopping me right now from, if I'm looking at OnlyFans on my laptop, to get my phone out and take pictures or to take screenshots or anything? There is no protection in any capacity of any of your content. And once you put it up on OnlyFans, it is on the internet for people to see forever. And so you then have no control over it. And then as well, this illusion of, well, I can kind of dictate what level of comfortability I'm at, and, people aren't going to influence me. at the agency where I was at, as I said, that we would onboard girls and then we would have them do a questionnaire. So part of that questionnaire is we had these things called levels. And so the level would indicate what type of content you're comfortable doing. And so level 1 was like Instagram content, bikini and lingerie. Level 2 was implied nude. And then level 3 all the way up to level 5. And so with that, I came in and I was like, why are we doing a level 1 when you can see that on Instagram for free? No one's going to pay to see a level 1 on OnlyFans. So we got rid of level 1, and then level 1 became implied nude. So you think you're in control, but you come to an agency and we're already telling you what your baseline is. So if you're like, I never want to get naked on the internet, well, we're telling you that the minimum you have to do is that. What's that doing for you psychologically as well? If you're going, oh, I'm at the bottom level. So if I want to make the money, if I got to be at the top because I'm at the bottom right now. So it's psychologically doing that for you. And then as well with that, from the perspective of subscribers, subscribers have this weird complex relationship. And I think it is where they have this weird sense of entitlement that I'm paying for your content, therefore you owe me something. And so if they're asking for specific things, of course they're going to pressure you. Do you think that someone's going to go, hi, I really would love for you to act this out for me, but if you don't want to, like, that's okay. Like, I still love you. Like, amazing. Or do you think they're going to be like, why won't you do this? Please, can't you? I really want this. Can't. And they're going to continue to pester you. Then you've got the allure of the money. And then again, you're already doing these acts and all of this. So at a point, you're eventually just going to go, why not?
Yeah.
I was literally in a podcast today with a gentleman who was an ex-WWE wrestler. And he said that he had a similar experience when he was starting out his career. And he noticed that people would ask to buy like weird items off of him, like when he did like a wrestling match, like his socks or whatever. But he's like, I can totally see how that can eventuate because, again, when you're a young wrestler, you're not making a lot of money, you're a little bit desperate, you start to sell these things. And then before you know it, like people can ask you for more and more. And that's what it is. It's a very slippery slope. And so when you get enticed by the money, I have a friend who worked in the porn industry and said that like you worship money, you just worship it. It's your God. And so that's why people think that they have a sense of control. But if you think about it, you're literally probably the most out of control that you potentially will ever be in your life.
It's so true. And I was actually literally going to bring this up. I was going to say, do you think the root of all of this is that desire for money, that desire for an awesome lifestyle, because that's the other thing that we see on Instagram and TikTok and these things is like this lavish lifestyle, these designer goods, like going on these like expensive holidays. And you literally just said it, like the God is money. Like that's what it all comes down to. And what does Matthew 6 say? You cannot serve God and money. Like this is just destined for disaster. It says like you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. So it's definitely not in alignment with Christian values at all, or what the Bible teaches. But I mean, set aside that, like what about the non-Christians? Like we can see in the word of God that this is not good for non-Christians. Of course it's not good for Christians, but like we need to be like speaking up about this because we don't want them to go that road.
I think that it's actually identity, to be honest. I think that like the worshipping of money is an element, but from what I understand anyways, I'm not saying like I'm correct 100%, but I think that it's identity. And I think about in the scriptures as well that what did the devil tempt Jesus with? And it was his identity. And like, of course, there was other things as well, but it's like, are you really the son of God? Like, is that who you are? Are you sure about that? Well, why can't you do that? Like, that's what he was testing. And so when you don't have an identity, when you don't know where you came from, who your creator was, what the whole purpose and point of your life is, that literally there was a plan and a purpose like made for you, like the Lord, like I love thinking about like that scripture where it says about like the good works that he had like set before you, like, or I'm butchering it, but
in advance for you to do.
Thank you. And it's like God literally had a plan and a purpose prepared for you before you were even born. And if we don't know that identity, if we don't know where we come from, and that we have a God that created us and loves us and died for us, like because of how much he just wants to be with us, we're going to put our identity to every single other thing like money, like sexuality, like business, like drugs, like alcohols, like boys, girls, whatever thing it is. And so that's what I really try to do anyways in my activism work and I guess ministry work. It feels weird saying that. I had someone ask me, this is such a
It's
sidebar.
great.
I had someone ask me that before, like, so like what do you do now? Like, what do you say your job is? Like, do you say it's ministry? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I
I
guess,
guess.
I don't know. Like, don't I have to go to school for that? Anyways, but in everything that I do, I try to champion people's identity because
Mm,
it's me finding my identity and finding who truly made me, where I come from, and what the reason of this life is. That was the
mm,
thing that has been able to change me so radically, and that I know will keep me changed forever because I have a true revelation of who Jesus is and that God is my Father. And
mhm,
so I think that if we can get everyone to understand their identity and that they were made for such big dreams and wild purposes that were
mhm.
tailor-made for them,
Yeah.
that we would be able to mitigate so many of these problems, you know?
Mhm. Jesus is the answer to like literally everything. Like literally, like we want to, get people out of OnlyFans. We want to get, like even like the pro-life issue, like all of these things. It comes back to the gospel. If we can get people saved and in right relationship with God, if we can get them, like you say, knowing their true identity in Christ, that would solve so much problems,
It would solve things, maybe everything, potentially.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he is the answer to like everything. So I love that you are in ministry now. Like, I think that's so great and so needed. So thank you, like, for saying yes to Jesus and saying yes to speaking up about this. Well, let's get back. I mean, I know like we're going on all these tangents and I love it, but like I'm trying to progress to the
Yeah.
story as well. So you briefly mentioned about leaving OnlyFans and then you went to church, but there was a moment when it all landed for you and when you realized that you couldn't continue in your work. When was that? I think it was to do, I mean, I'm referencing your Exodus Road interview, your niece. You were spending some time with your niece, I believe.
Oh, yep. So what had happened was I was working at the agency, and what had happened was I have 10 little nieces and nephews under the age of 3.
So
It's
good.
so fun. And like 7 of them are little girls. And I remember I was working one day. And again, at this point, as I said, I was really, really struggling. And there was one girl that we had at the agency. And I remember I was just looking at her one day and I went, oh my gosh, this is what one of my nieces is going to grow up and look like. And I went, if my niece did this as a job, I would be devastated. And then I was like, if my brother's daughter did this as a job, he would be devastated. But that's someone's daughter. Why is it okay that that person's daughter gets to do it, but my brother's daughter couldn't? And that was kind of that moment for me where these girls are, again, it's a weird thing because it's like I was struggling with it because I knew these girls and I'm seeing porn for the first time, but then you also weirdly as well commodify women because they're a product at the end of the day. So it's this weird, I guess, thing that I was wrestling with. But in that moment is when she became a human. And so that's when I started this journey of asking people questions at the agency, feeling really wrong about this. And then that's what ended up with my genius refugee idea. And that's how which led me to Jesus.
And how did it all go down at the office, like when you left? Or did you say why, or were you just like, moving on now?
So I think because it was such a close personal friend, I had a friendship with this person for like 14 years. When I'd messaged them, I'd said literally the next day on the Monday, I said, I'm struggling with this job, the morality of it, and I don't know what to do. Because again, there was such a deep connection to this person. By the Friday, they were like, how are you feeling? Like RE morality. And I was like, I just don't think I can do this job anymore. There's something about it that's making me really upset.
Mm.
Um, and then it was a bit of a journey with that. But yeah, I obviously, because of that, had to walk away from friendship groups and long-term friends and deal with some of the consequences of that. Yeah.
Mm. And that must have been very hard, obviously, but it's kind of a pattern of your life, is what I've seen it anyway. From you literally set aside everything to follow Christ. Would you say that that would be
Yeah.
accurate?
I think that this is something that I think is a little bit of an interesting perspective as well, that I hear that people, and I understand, and I know that Jesus was our suffering servant, and I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying when I say this, but people, I think, again, get so caught up with this like concept of surrender. And like I hear people when they talk about their walk with the Lord, and but it is painful and it is sacrifice and it is hard and it is all these things, and we have to die to our flesh every day, and it's this constant battle of picking up. And I feel that the tone and the connotations that we're putting to it is not the right thing that we should be doing. It is a joy. Yes, yes, I understand that, giving up 14-year friendships, giving away your but that is a joy in the comparison that it is to be able to follow a life with God. Oh my gosh, take everything. Why should I ever? That's why I say, when you have to surrender something to the Lord, when he's asking you to do it with joy, and don't sit here and say to people that, well, you have to die to your flesh, Eric. Do you know that? Because honestly, we are so blessed with the opportunity. I really feel strongly about this, that we get to live a life with our God, like a personal, intimate relationship with Jesus. And that it's not just that he saves us and then we're in like the 99 and then he just lets us do our thing. He still holds our hand. He still brings us through this journey. And then when we die here on earth, we actually get to hang out with him for forever. We don't even understand what that means. And yet you want to complain about that you have to give up a friendship, or that you have to give up a job, and that it's hard, and that it's a sacrifice, and we're suffering servants. Like, really? I don't know. I just, I'm like, and as well, I think about like Paul, and I'm like, are we ever, there is some people in this world that literally do suffer, and they will be killed, and their parents will be killed, and their children will be killed. And there is legitimate consequences for a lot of people in this world that follow Jesus, legitimate consequences. For us here in our world where we have religious freedom the way that we do, we are blessed to be able to put down the things that we consider suffering. Blessed. And so that's why I encourage people so much, because we're not having to go, if I say that I follow Jesus, that I'm potentially going to put my whole entire family's life in danger. I'm going to have people come and kill me. I'm going to be put in prison. And that is a lot of the reality for a lot of people in this world to follow Jesus. So I'm like, bro, take the friends, take everything, take the money, take the jobs. I don't care, because what a blessing that that's my sacrifice that I have to make to the Lord,
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's so true. And a healthy dose of perspective is extremely valuable for us who are living in the cozy West and who are not, I mean, like, what do I suffer for Christ? Like, really, I get nasty comments sometimes. And it's like, like, I think about what Christ suffered for me, and like exactly what you just said about these people suffering over the world. And if I can get to suffer a little bit, like, this is going to probably be the max of my suffering, is going to be trolls, like.
Yeah, and that if you just get off the app, it doesn't exist. It's not real.
That's right.
I had to experience that for the first time when I had like mean comments on a thing, and I just remember going, wait a minute, and I was getting upset about it. I'm like, if I just exit the app, I was like, it's not real. I was like, cool. I was like, bye. And I just didn't go on TikTok for like a week.
And it's gone. And the other thing I wanted to just bring it back to is too, you were talking about the joy. Jesus, when there's a Bible verse, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the reference, but it's like, for the joy set before him, for the joy set before Christ, he endured the cross. So endure what you have for the joy that is set before you, which is life with Christ in heaven, which is being able to glorify him, however you can, through your ministry, through whatever, through your life on this earth before you go to glory. I mean, I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we're coming kind of getting closer to the end now. So there's a few closing questions, and I also have a question from Instagram that I'll put to you. But what can we do? I mean, I feel like we briefly talked about this, but like, what could we do to ensure our daughters, our nieces, our friends aren't fooled by that allure of a platform like OnlyFans?
I think that the two things that I try, that I think are my most important pillars is education and equipping. And I think that if we can educate ourselves in these things, we'll actually be equipped to be able to combat these things. So to educate ourselves and stuff like this, there's some incredible resources out there. You can follow pages like Fight the New Drug, which just gives a lot of basic facts, information, and statistics. It's a science-based platform, I guess you could say, about the reality of porn, how this is hurting us, and the damages of stuff like this. Exodus Cry, as you've mentioned, have a lot of free documentaries, even on YouTube, that talk about a lot of this stuff. And their new documentary, Buying Her, talks about literally how like the idealizations of porn turns into the manifestation of things like prostitution and these other things that we're talking about. There's one called Raised on Porn, which shows the effects of being raised on porn on a child's brain and stuff. So just educating ourselves, even a simple Google, if like stuff like that for people, you're like, I don't even know where to begin. What are these organizations are? Just Googling, you know, like as like parental lock systems for iPads, or the reality of OnlyFans, or why is over-sexualization bad, or just some very simple terms like that. And just doing some basic studies, listening to podcasts like this, following people like that. And again, even if it's that soft influence that you're just starting to see this information secondhand as you scroll, it'll really start to make an impact. And then what that does when we educate ourselves is when your daughter is maybe scrolling and you see like a sexual thing on her, like TikTok come up, you can then be like, oh, I wonder, I now know that there's an OnlyFans agency that actually puts this stuff out there to manipulate like young girls. Maybe I'll sit
Mm-hmm.
down and be like, oh, how does that make you feel when you see stuff like that? Or who do you follow? And just asking those type of questions, because then now you're educated with the knowledge to understand that these things happen. And so then you're equipped to be able to ask those type of questions, and then be able to, with your knowledge and your words for your child, because you know them best, be able to then educate them. And then that equips them. So then they're with their friends, and then they go, oh my gosh, no, that like Anna Paul, no, like OnlyFans isn't cool. Like she's a loser. Like we don't want to be like her. Like she does
Mm-hmm.
porn. That's
Mm-hmm.
not an like, and so this is the ripple effect of it. So I think that education, which leads to equipping.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And that's something that my mum actually instilled in me when I was in high school age. She would always say to us, you know, you can decide what is cool. You can decide what
Mm.
is cool in your friend group. And so if your friend is like, oh, let's go to a party on Friday night and let's all get drunk, or whatever it is, my mum would be like, you can be the one to say, lame, I don't want to go do that. You can use peer pressure
Oh,
in
I
like a
love
good
that.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
And I wanted to hear a little bit actually about how this has been received when you go into high schools. Like, what is the feedback that you're getting from the teenagers in high schools?
I'll cry. It's really beautiful. I had a girl message me and say like this has helped to change her perspective on everything. And girls say that now they're equipped to know what to say to boys when they ask for nudes. And I had a girl say that, and a 14-year-old to say this, that you don't understand how much that's healed me.
Wow.
And it's just like all these different little revelations for these girls. And I love the Jesus drip in it, because what in this specific kind of course that workshop that I do with these girls, there's an element of it of championing their identity. And God is so kind and so gracious that literally through this, we're able to actually prophesy over girls their identity. And like it's just beautiful, and what the Lord has called and championed them to. And you can see that move of the Spirit in these young girls and how they're getting touched by Jesus to understand who they are. So it's been really special, and it's just such a joy to be able to see that and then have that type of stuff received. Girls are understanding terms like countercultural, soft influence, and they're actually repeating these things back to me in sentences, and they're having an understanding. So it's really cool.
That's so cool. And not that anyone's asking me, but what is the reply to say when someone asks you for nudes?
My favorite one is no is a complete sentence. Just say no.
Mhm.
You can even say other things to them like, do you know that this is illegal? Because it is. Do you know that you can get put in prison for asking me for this?
Wow,
Um,
that's good. Yeah.
yeah. And literally as well, I say, do you know it's as simple as you can block them. I was like, take screenshots as well, send this to your girlfriends in a girl group and be like, blah, blah, blah is asking me for a nude, and literally have your girlfriends champion you. Because
Mm.
if feeling that pressure for them to say, oh my gosh, no, what do you mean? Like, you are so much more like valuable than that. Don't do that. And that's what I've encouraged these girls to do. And they're saying that they're going to go do now. They're going to tell their friends when a boy asks for a nude, and they're going to get their friends to be able to pull them out of it. And that is something as simple as saying no, or telling these boys that this is literally illegal. Like, you will get in trouble and I will get in trouble too. And then knowing that in that environment that we cultivated, that they can actually come to their teachers as well if they feel overwhelmed, because the teachers are in the room and they are safe people. And that if you want them to go to the authorities, like, they will for you. And then as well, something as simple as there's a free 24/7 kids helpline. You can call the helpline if there's no one else that you feel safe and comfortable with. And so it's just those small things. It seems like a lot of the girls, it was just, you can just say no.
Even just like identifying the fact that as soon as somebody says that to you, that is no longer a safe conversation.
Yeah.
Say no and block immediately. No, you don't need to have any more to do with that person, because this is not a safe conversation as soon as they say that.
Yeah, literally. And I even told the girls, I was like, I had a boyfriend from like 14 to 18, and we had Snapchat and all the things. And I was like, he never asked me for a naked picture. I was like, that exists and it's real, and it's not normal for boys to ask those things.
How toxic is it that that's what our girls are, when they come into that age, that
Yeah.
is normal, that is
Yeah.
like, oh, send nudes. No.
And just to actually, I'm so sorry, I just thought of this as well. Another really important one for parents
Bring
to
it
know
on. Yeah.
as well is the amount of young boys that are asking girls for naked pictures and saying that they will take their own lives if they don't get a picture of this girl is massive. There was literally a girl in that class yesterday that had a boy say that I will take my life if you don't send me pictures. And she sent pictures and he sent them around the entire school. And
my
so
gosh.
advice for parents as well is this does happen. It is very common. It happens regularly. And so to tell your daughters, and I said this to the girls, that if a boy is genuinely in danger of hurting himself, you need to tell your parents. They need to come to the school, and they will then tell the boy's parents and deal with it themselves. You sending a photo of yourself is not going to help this boy.
No.
It is never going to save his life. And if he is saying these things, he is in danger, and you need to tell your parents. And so I think that that's a really important one as well. And a lot of the girls really understood that is a lie. That is not going to help him in any capacity. And if you actually genuinely think he is in danger, you need to tell your parents, and your parents will go to the school and they will deal with it accordingly. Because again, if as a parent, hear your daughter say that, we as adults know that we can deal with that, but these young girls are literally getting manipulated. So I think for parents as well, have that conversation with your daughter, or potentially if your daughter comes up to you and does say something like that a boy's asked me for something, again, not freaking out and going, okay, we need to go to the school. We need to talk to them about this because this is very serious and very important. You're not in trouble. You've done nothing wrong here. Thank you for coming and telling me, because we need to get this boy help.
Yeah, that is so great. And this is why what you're doing is so important, Victoria, because these conversations need to be happening. These conversations need to be out in the open. And that's what I love about even just this format, is that we can just be talking about this and people can listen and they can be educated themselves and their children can change. And then hopefully that can spread, and just like, that's what we want to see, isn't it? We want to see all of this information be spread across so that these girls aren't, because I can understand like this naive girl who is a compassionate person. She doesn't want to see someone die, but she doesn't realize that this is manipulation. This is extreme emotional manipulation. And yeah, you're so right. A naked picture is not going to save anyone from killing themselves. Come on. So anyway, okay, well, I've got some Instagram questions, so just bear with me 1 minute because I'm just going to choose one, because I realize you have probably somewhere to be. So I might just do two because they're kind of related, if that's all right. So this is questions from our Instagram. We got a few. There's one that says, was it good pay doing OnlyFans marketing? And then the other one that I think it would be good to talk about is, what was the youngest aged girl that you guys represented in your agency?
Look, was there the capacity to make a lot of money there? Yes. At the time, we have to remember that it was a startup. So was I balling? No. And then for the the youngest girl. The youngest girl, we would lie about her age. So she was probably 20, I think, and we would lie and say that she was 18. And then I think the other youngest girl, and again, don't quote me, I think that the next youngest girl was 19.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is just to try and make them appear to be younger.
Yeah.
They're 19, but you're trying to say the younger. Well, that's their marketing
So
strategy
if
almost.
they were like 2021, but they looked younger, we would ask, like, would you say you're 18? As I said, one of them was about 20 and would say that she was 18. And then from memory, there was about one or two girls that were probably 19.
Okay. All right. Well, our last question today, and honestly, Victoria, I feel like I could keep talking to you for another hour. Like, you have so much to say and we have so much to learn from you. So thank you so much. I've just really enjoyed our conversation, and I know it's going to bless so many people to hear what you have to say and the wisdom that you have to share. But our last question today is what I ask everyone who comes on the podcast, and feel free to answer this however the Lord leads, or however you feel like you want to answer it. How are you living your faith outside of Sunday?
Oh, mate, every single moment you get. I talked about a podcast with my church, an evangelism one, and a perspective that I try my hardest to keep is that, especially in the specifics of sharing your faith, going up to people, praying for strangers in the street, and all of that type of stuff, is who am I to ever deny someone an encounter with the Lord? Who am I to
Wow.
take that luxury from them? How dare I think that I can do that? And so that's why I take the responsibility of, when I'm on a platform or even in a secular space, of representing Christ so well. And I try my hardest to do that, because that might be someone's only ever experience that they get with Jesus. And I better make sure that I am trying my best to show that that is one of love, of compassion, of hope, of gentleness, of humility, and of patience. And I pray for those things daily. And so for me, how I try to walk out my faith outside of Sunday is every single moment of what can I do to serve people? How can I show Jesus through what I do? How can I be obedient to the Lord? How can I not take away someone's possibility of having an interaction with Jesus through me? How can I exude that through everything I do? Like, even if I'm at the gym and I get a prompting to go up to someone, just do it. If I'm in a grocery store, just do it. Just go up to someone, because again, who am I to take that away from someone? And so when I say that I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying of, well, then you have to force it and you have to this. No, 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 no. It's I heard this gentleman, this crazy evangelist in America, this young kid, he's wild. I love his story, Bryce something. And he goes, sometimes when we go on these evangelism walks or whatever, the Lord might highlight 3 people and that's it. And so it's not about the volume. It's not about these things and being like, I need to go up to 20 people. But when you have that prompting and you know that nudge in your spirit to just go up and just do it. And that's something I try to encourage people, and I try my best to live my life doing that every single day. Because I really feel that who am I to ever deny someone's experience with the Lord, if that's through sharing on social media, if that's going up to a person, if that's doing a podcast, if whatever capacity that is, because I have it tattooed on me, Acts 20:24. I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to run the race and complete the task. So I try my best to live that scripture every day.
So great. Wow, what an answer. Thank you so much. Victoria, if people want to connect with you and your work that you're doing and the work that you're doing, should they go find you on Instagram? Is it under Creating Gems, or your personal account, Victoria? How can they connect with you and get this content into their schools? Like, honestly, I'm like, come to New Zealand, please.
Oh my gosh, if there's an invitation, I'll totally come. The beauty is that I can do this worldwide. So yeah, if anyone wants to hire me to come to their schools, let's do it. That'll be so much fun. But
Book
yeah,
her.
thanks for plugging that. But yeah, so Victoria.Sinis, Sinis is my Instagram. That's where I post majority of my things. I do have a TikTok as well, which is just Vic Sinis. My website is just getting updated at the moment, but you can still book me to be able to speak at schools, podcasts, or speak in person as well. Something else that I'm not launching just yet on my social media. So for anyone kind of hearing these podcasts, it's a little bit of like a specialty thing until I launch it, is consultancy work as well. So you can email me through Creating Gems, but just because I do have an extensive background in startups and in marketing, I really have a heart, especially for people in faith, to be able to help them to build their brands and their social media presence. And so I do specific strategy work with people. So that's a consultancy thing that I offer as well. And then also, I guess OnlyFans consultancy, there's a lot of stuff that I can't really get into the nuts and bolts of through a podcast. And so being able to sit down with people and again, educating them on a lot of this stuff, so then they can either equip their schools, equip their congregation, or equip their non-for-profits. That's another type of consultancy thing that I offer as well. So yeah, you can find me at my Instagram or my website and just email me. And that's probably the best way to do it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. We're going to let you go now, but God bless you. God bless that work that you're doing. And yeah, I'll be following along, and I'm so excited to see what the Lord is doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
Coming up next week on the Outside of Sunday podcast, I'm here with Julie from Whispers of Grace, and we're going to do our little post-guest chat today about our awesome guest who we just had, Victoria. Was your mind blown? Like, I don't know how familiar you are with like OnlyFans and like pornography and all of that, but was your mind blown?
It was. It was such a good. It was such a good open door, especially for a mom, for me to be thinking, because I didn't know about OnlyFans. That was new to me.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. It's something that I didn't actually get to talk to Victoria about, but I've seen her share on her Instagram account, which is the average monthly earnings that these OnlyFans girls are making. So you see the people who are making like 6 figures a month, or like, $1 million a year or whatever, but the average woman who is putting those pictures and those videos up on OnlyFans is earning $180 a month. But the first time that I ever was exposed to pornography, I was living in Newcastle, New South Wales in Australia. I was on a bus, so random. I was on a bus and I happened to have my Bluetooth turned on.
So I was at a sleepover at a friend's house who had a big brother who was watching porn in his room with the door open. So it was one of those, like, we walked by and I was like, what? Went back and I was like, what is even happening?
How old were you?
Oh, high school.
High school.
I was probably a sophomore, maybe.
I don't know what that means.
Oh.
Like, I hear people say that on TV. And I'm like, I don't know what a sophomore is. Congrats, you made it to the end of this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Thanks for the support. Become an official outsider by liking and subscribing and leaving a 5-star review. If you'd like to connect with the podcast, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search Outside of Sunday podcast. And don't forget to let someone you know about this podcast.